This video will demonstrate the changes I've made to the Anno scripting API since the latest game update, the Anno, which is the game update 8. And since that update, most of the stuff from my previous code no longer worked because the code of the game has changed sufficiently much. So notably different from the previous iteration of the scripting API was that you code against the API through Python, which is now done with C#. The reason I switched to C# is to get the built-in Visual Studio debugger, so it's easier to inspect the code as it's being executed, and as well to get the editor support that is for C#. So I found that to be a little more easy to write the user-facing or user scripts for the game. And sort of an under-the-hood change is that now instead of manually writing a lot of the code that exchanges data between the injected code and the script side, this is now done through YAML files, or in particular one YAML file, two actually, comms.yaml, which defines which data structures we can use. So it'll generate a C# version of that data structure as well as a C++ version, and on both sides it will also generate code that serializes and deserializes it, so we can send it back and forth between the scripting code and the injected code. And likewise, there's the function section, which generates essentially a function on the C# side with an associated function ID.
An explosion in one of your factories.
This function will then, under the hood, take the input that the user is giving in the script, pack that down together with the function ID, and send that package, that payload of data, to the injected code, which can then inspect the function ID, route it to the correct implementation, and then unpack the serialized data. And that will happen automatically, so you can expand the API by adding entries in here, and then writing an implementation for what that's supposed to do on the injected code side in C++. Fairly easy. At least it takes out the manual labor of writing serialization and routing code. And likewise with enums, I thought there was going to be a lot of enums for various things in the game, so that's a separate file, but it will contribute much like the comms YAML file. All the enums will be generated both as C# and C++ enums, and there will be code that sort of deals with serializing it and deserializing it. So that's about it for the auto-generated code. And now not a lot of functions from the injected code works anymore, apart from a few interesting ones, one being we can get all the ships in a region or in an area, and adding waypoints to a list of ships, or to a group of ships. And this program here will demonstrate how that works. So let's first try and comment out this line here. So that'll say we'll get to what that does in just a minute. So everything that's auto-generated from the C# side will be in this monocle namespace, and I think from the user point of view, all functions that you do to interact with the game should go through this an instance of this telegraph object. And the telegraph object is an object that, when you construct it, establishes a connection with the injected code, and then it offers a bunch of public functions that essentially more or less does what they suggest. So in this program here, we have the telegraph object being constructed, and then we first use it to get all the ships in the old world. And the signature of the functions defined on this object might be a little bit counterintuitive, but they all work in a way where They all return a boolean to identify if everything went well. So if something went wrong along the way of the call, it will signal that with a boolean. And then all the input parameters, which is defined as the input here, will be the first regular parameters, and all the output will be out parameters. I just found that easier for generating code of the more or less same format. So here, the telegraph object will get us all the ship data in this out parameter. We can then go and say get all the IDs from the ships that we've just retrieved from the game, and put that into a list, and then we can use the telegraph object to say, well, add a waypoint to this group of ships to this coordinate. We need to pull out the IDs into a separate list because this add waypoint takes a list rather than ship data. It's just better reflects how the injected code does it. There's no particular reason why it needs to be like that. So if we run the debugger until this point down here with Control F10, we can see that the ship data that we got has 5 entries, and let's just inspect one of them. That is, say, well, the name is Turbo's Quiet, and it's a schooner, and we can check, does that make sense? That's this one. Turbo's Quiet, it's a schooner. Okay, that's correct. And then if we let the program finish, we'll see that we should see that all the ships move to this coordinate, and I just know by having run this before that this coordinate should be somewhere up here. So if I press F5 and run the game, we can see that all the ships start moving, and if we select them, they move in a formation, or move to that location in the formation similar to if you right-clicked. So let's send them back, and then uncomment this line, because no longer, using this SQL-like syntax, before what we did was we just took all the ship IDs from the list. But now let's try and say, well, what if we want only the ships that are schooners? So if we run this code now, just compile it. All right, then we should see that the same effect happens, but only for these two ships. So if I press F5 and move this out of the way, we can see that these two schooners are now the only ones moving. So yeah, that's what the scripting API can do for now. And so a lot of stuff to be added in the near future. Thank you for watching.